Hi there and welcome.
You're listening to Animals and Us, Voices of a New Paradigm.
My name is Avantika, and I'm a researcher exploring animal consciousness, environmental sustainability, and planetary health. I want to help bring animal perspectives to the table and transform our relationship with the natural world.
And I'm Barbara. I'm an animal communicator and retired veterinarian. My true passion is exploring the hearts and souls of animals and helping people come to a much deeper understanding of who the animals truly are at their core.
This podcast is for anyone who loves animals and nature and has an interest in their own personal and spiritual development. We'll bring you powerful conversations with fascinating people about animal and nature sentience, consciousness, and communication.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of love, respect, understanding, and care for the fellow beings who share our beautiful Mother Earth with us.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Animals and Us, Voices of a New Paradigm. We're so excited to introduce you all to today's guest, Dr. Cara Gubbins. Cara's journey is a beautiful blend of science, intuition, and deep listening to the voices of the animal world. She holds a PhD in ecology, evolution, and conservation biology. When she was a little girl, Cara says she dreamt of being Dr. Dolittle. And that came true later in life when she began doing intuitive communication sessions with animals in 2010. A year later, she opened her practice professionally, and since then, she's communicated with thousands of animals, not only dogs, cats, horses, but also lions, whales, insects, fish, and reptiles. And now, through her Animal Communicator Academy, her annual Animal Communicator and Healer Summits, and her numerous books and online learning tools, she helps animal lovers do something that I think all of us have in common, which is to awaken our intuitive gifts so that we can talk to animals too. What I love most about Cara's work is the philosophy that runs through all of it, that we are divine beings having a human experience, and that animals are not separate from us, but are our teachers, our companions, and sometimes the very ones we've come here to serve. And that if you have a dream, especially one that calls you to connect more deeply with animals, it's not random, it is meant for you. Cara, it's a joy and an honor to have you with us today. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Avantika and Barbara. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to see you, Cara. And even before we start, I want to thank you for all the work you do. I mean, it's a lot, and you do it with such love and care. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Yes, it's really kind of amazing. So I would like to know your history a little bit and how you got into this. What called you?
What called me? The animals called me for sure. From like the time I was born, I was just all about animals. And I think, my dream when I realized Dr. Dolittle, I saw that movie with Rex Harrison. And not only was he talking to animals, but he was like singing and stuff too. I was like, that's the world I want to live in. And I'm not a singer at all. But that just really spoke to me. And when I told an adult about it, I was told that that's not real and I should find a real dream. And so I was really crushed. And I latched on to the next best thing, which was to become Jacques Cousteau. And I just loved dolphins and whales and seals and being in the water and just, everything about marine mammals. And that's what drove most of my life, like from high school, college, graduate school. I studied dolphins my entire life until I finished my PhD in 2000. And even as I was pursuing that and loving it, like you don't get a PhD if you don't love what you're doing. I'll just say that. But there was this part of me that was always going, yeah, but but this thing. And I was always really intrigued by the mythology of humans and animals communicating with each other. And in fact, one of the Star Trek movies where Earth is in trouble and somehow a whale has the message to save Earth, and Spock comes back in time and mind melds with a whale. When I was getting my master's degree, that was like this shot to my heart of like, yes, see, it's out there, like it's in a fictional movie, but that's the thing. That's what I was longing for. And so once I graduated with my PhD and I started teaching at a college, I started teaching biology and student success courses, and I had my family. That's when my dream really came back in a really, really strong way. And I thought, I can't die with this inside of me. I have to try to make this happen. And so I didn't know at the time, because this was the early 2000s. It was very pre-internet. Honestly, there were websites, but there wasn't the same amount of access to information that there is now. And what I decided to do was to train with a local intuitive, and I did a year-long training program in a class with other people, and with the intention of using those skills to communicate intuitively with animals. And that I pieced it together myself. And then I imposed a year-long training period for myself where I started getting better and better and better at it before I started charging money. And within, I think the first animal that I successfully communicated with intuitively was in October. And in December, I quit my job at the college so that I could start my business as an animal communicator. And I literally have not looked back since.
What year was that, Cara?
That was, so let's see, I think I turned in my final grades in 2010. And I started my business about a year later.
Uh-huh.
So I've been in business as a solopreneur for about 14 years now. This might be my 15th. I don't know. I always have trouble with the math.
Yeah, really. Really. That's so interesting. I started with dolphins too. They're so incredible. I think
They are.
they may be the easiest to communicate with, and that's why so many people talk to dolphins. They're just so totally present. So, what an interesting path you've taken.
Kara, you were talking about the mythology of animal communication. It's something I've been thinking about so much because, coming from a Hindu background, Hindu upbringing, there are so many animals in Hindu mythology, and I've always wondered, well, maybe not always wondered, recently, since I've, entered into this world of animal communication, that what if those myths were real? Like, what if, what if there were conversations happening? What if the communication was happening? And just now, in today's day and age, we see these things as myths. I love how you said that you had these yeah buts, throughout all the work that you were doing, and that you had this feeling and these thoughts inside of you that you were completely convinced, needed exploration and needed time to to think about and to investigate a little bit. So you've probably, over the course of the last 15 years had hundreds, probably thousands of conversations with many different kinds of animals. Would you say there are any key lessons that you've learned over the years, either from them directly or through the experiences of communicating with them?
I think for me, one of the big lessons that stands out as like kind of a general pattern is always be curious. There's always a surprise. I remember the first conversation that I had with bats. I was hiking in my local park, and there was a bridge over the creek where a lot of bats were roosting, and I decided to communicate with them. And I I think I grew up in the US and there's a lot of negativity around bats, and they're rats with wings and they're dirty and they're scary. And, like there's a lot of bad press for bats. And I didn't buy into it, but I didn't not buy into it. I mean, that was kind of like, okay, let's just see here. And what they communicated with me was so amazingly rich and beautiful about their social life and the way that they look after each other and take care of each other, and how non-competitive they are. And in fact, they showed me almost like this three-dimensional radar screen of how they see the world with sonar and how they communicate that to each other, so that if somebody finds a great patch of insects, at dusk, they can tell everybody. Everybody knows because they're all sharing that wisdom and that information, and they're all looking out for each other and taking care of each other. And it was so contrary to the way that I had perceived bats before. It never occurred to me that they would be cooperative and help each other. I grew up in a very competitive family, and for me, any kind of cooperation was just like, what? What is this? And so that was part of my opening up of like, wow, I have a worldview based on my senses and based on my experience in life. And it is not necessarily accurate, and it's not necessarily anybody else's worldview. And I think that over and over again, the animals, through the conversations, through just being in their presence, have taught me that we have what we need inside of us to be ourselves. That's where our golden compass is. It is really looking within ourselves and not seeing others as competitors or in conflict in any way, but to really embrace a more mutualistic relationship and a more harmonious relationship with everything. I talked to a squirrel in my backyard the other day, and she was talking about stillness. I was like, stillness, like what, you're always moving. Where does the stillness come in? But then I watched her, and she's not. She has moments of stillness, which are choice points. And then she chooses what action to take. And she's very decisive, but she's evaluated everything. And she really sees her environment as supporting her. Even though I think of squirrels as kind of like nervous Nellies and running around, and they're worried about predators and all that stuff. She was not like that. She was like, no, I go to this place of stillness inside of me, and that's where I take action from. And I was like, it's so different from people. We're so reactive. We never go to stillness. So these are, to me, like some of it's the surprise is the big lesson, right? Like the being open, the being curious, not thinking we know it all, not thinking that our perspective is the only perspective, but truly being open and curious and saying, who are you? Show me who you are. Tell me about your experience in the world. And I think that animal communication can open us up. I think we can have that attitude without animal communication, and I wish more of us did, that we lived in much more cooperative societies. But I think that animal communication really expands that experience, and it anchors it and it deepens it. At least it has inside of me. And so over these past 14, 15 years that I've been doing this, I've noticed a real shift in my mindset and my approach to life, and looking at my younger self and how competitive I was, and how now I'm like, okay, so you're a rat in my garage. Let's talk. How's this going for us? Is this working for you? Is it working for me? Is there, another way we could approach this? Why are you here? Right? Like I look at things not as like there's a problem that I have to fix. I look at it as, wow, here's an interaction, here's a relationship. We're living in the same space. How do we coexist? How do we share this world that we are both living?
Wow. That's such a different way of looking at life than we're taught to have, that we're conditioned to really cherish all of life, all beings. Instead of competing, we're cooperating and learning from one another. That's so beautiful. And,
Thank you.
something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is, and what's come to me over the years of communicating with animals, being with animals, is that, as an animal communicator, it's about language. We get these beautiful messages and all that. But from my perspective, many people are intimidated by animal communication, or they're skeptical, or they don't think they can do it, or it doesn't work for them, or they don't believe it, or whatever it is. But from my perspective, there are gradations of connection and different ways of connecting. Some people get words, some people get visions, some people get feelings, some people get dreams. And to me, it's all the same thing. It's just different ways of perceiving. And I just want to know your perspective on this is do you see animal communication as a thing and that we can all do it if we work hard enough and we learn how to do it? Or is it we can sit with an animal in silence, like the squirrel, sit quietly with an animal and just connect and be present together. I took a course in animal Reiki not so long ago, and that's their whole philosophy is just to be fully present in meditation, if you want to call it that. And that energy transference between you is what's truly important, far more than the words. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah. For me, I think my brand or my flavor of loving animals is just being around animals is enough. Like, I have no other agenda or expectation. Just to be in their presence is fulfilling to me. I really do think animal communication is a specific thing. It's a phenomenon, perhaps, is a good word for it, that happens. Um, I think when we think of ourselves as living in an energetic soup where everything is connected energetically and we're just kind of concentrations of energy. So if you think of, the world as little concentrations of energy, there's me, there's a tree, we're different concentrations of energy, and there's energy between us. We're always connected energetically. It's our awareness that is either on or off. We're either aware of that connection or we're not. But that connection exists whether we're aware of it or not. And I think that animal communication is something that literally happens as an exchange of energy. And so I'm sure, I'm thinking of Barbara Brennan, who was a NASA physicist who's done a lot of experiments, and John Oshman also done a lot of research on the physics of energy and what happens in bodies and stuff like that. So we know that energetically there are phenomena that we can track and trace and identify. And I believe that animal communication is one of those things that we may not have the tools yet to be able to track it and identify it, but that there is an energetic exchange. And that exchange is mostly dependent on our awareness. So I think it's happening all the time. I'm just not always aware of the intuitive messages that my dogs are sending me when we're out hiking together, right? I have to focus my awareness to get that message, to receive it. But I think also there is maybe another step down the spectrum, collective consciousness, which supersedes animal communication. Like, I really see animal communication as a phenomenon that happens between two nervous systems, but it's an energetic exchange rather than vibrational exchange, right? For sounds or images. And collective consciousness to me is timeless, and it is another level beyond intuitive animal communication. And this was really brought home to me last year when I was down in Baja California and I was camping out near San Ignacio Lagoon where the gray whales are. And I was having conversations once or twice a day with the whales in the lagoon, formally and informally, when I was out on the boats and sometimes when I was back in camp. And I started to notice these patterns of what I was asking them, they were giving me. So in linear time, I would say something like, oh, I haven't seen anybody spy hop yet on this trip. It would be great. If you feel like it, would you spy hop? Right? Like, not a demand, just like, wow, I would love to see that. And then I'd be out on the next boat ride and there would be literally whales all around me spy hopping. It was really incredible. So I'm like, wow, this animal communication is really, really working. And then I later learned that the conditions of the geology under the bay, the tides and the winds created the perfect conditions where the whales really enjoy spy hopping. It just happened to be that morning that I had asked for that. And then I was like, whoa, why did I ask for that? Were you planting a seed in my brain to ask for what you already knew you were going to show me? Like, what? Like, my mind was just like, poof, blown away. And when I asked the whales about it that night, they said, yeah, that's collective consciousness. That's how connected we are. And this is not just, intuitive animal communication between your nervous system and my nervous system. This is collective consciousness, which is the spiritual framework of the entire universe. And their sense of belonging to this planet, to this universe, to this spiritual playground that we call planet Earth was so profound that it's like an overwhelming avalanche of energy when you're in their presence. And so they inhabit this spiritual world through the physical world. The multidimensionality of it is like way beyond what my brain can figure out. But it really, really brought home to me that there are gradations. There are kind of categories along the spectrum. And there is something, and perhaps there's even more than what I'm aware of, even beyond collective consciousness. And perhaps that's what people call God or spirit or source. I don't know. I'm like this little kindergartner in Earth School going, wow, this is amazing. I love this field trip.
Oh, that's so cool, Cara. My sense is when you talk about this collective consciousness, and that whales certainly embody it and are part of it as we are, it seems to me if you can come, and this may come up later in the conversation, but if we're connected with universal cosmic consciousness, which we are, if we're communicating with animals, just as easily we're communicating with other human beings, we're communicating with angels and guides and fairies and nature spirits. It's all one consciousness. And so there's really no separation. Is that how you see it too?
There's really not. And that really goes back to the initial question that Avantika asked me, which was like, what have you learned? And that's what I've learned. And I've learned it kicking and screaming the hard way, step by step, one conversation at a time, until it's like, to me, I always think of the analogy of one piece of paper, it's very light. Two pieces of paper doesn't make much difference, but 100, 1,000, now you've got some substance there. And that's for me what my process has been. It's been really Like one conversation, one little insight, one little misunderstanding in my brain healed. And those have suddenly added up to now I'm like looking at the world differently. I'm talking differently. I'm being different, right? Like it changes the world. It changes our worlds. It changes our inner world, and it changes what we do in the outer world. And when we know who we are and that we're connected, we're different. And when you know that and you own that, and then you see who doesn't get that yet, you're like, that's the only reason you can be acting that way, because you don't understand the nature of the universe and the nature of who you truly are. And it's not a philosophy. Like the more and more deeper I go into this work and healing the misunderstandings in my own mindset, because as we're kids, we don't understand the world. We're making sense of it based on what we're experiencing. We mess it up like 99% of the time because our brains aren't developed. We don't know what's going on, so we're trying to make sense of this world. And then we see through those eyes that we created. And when you uncreate that, when you take those blinders off, when you take away those layers of illusion that we have created through misunderstanding and trying to figure out the world that we live in, and you start to see who you truly are, your language changes, your presence changes, your actions change. What you want to talk about changes. And you start to have compassion because you know how connected you are. You know that you are not separate. You've never been separate. That was the biggest illusion of all of them. And that's again going back to what's the message from the animals that I keep getting over and over. I was made for this life. I belong here. I'm loved and supported. Everything I need is available to me. What if humans lived from that knowingness? And when we encounter it, we have these epiphany moments, right? Like that's why so many people go see the gray whales in Baja, because you're in that energy field of somebody who knows who they are. They're living it, and the profound peace that comes from knowing that you are loved and safe and that you matter and that you're enough, it's healing and it's profound and you want more of it. And that's what we all have available to us. And I think that that's one of the ways to get there is through animal communication. At least that's been the path for me that has led me to really not just see this like, oh yeah, intellectually, but to like know it and feel it and live it in my body.
I'm like loving this conversation so much. And thank you for articulating all of these things in such a beautiful way. I would like to take a guess that anyone who's listening to this right now, who, our podcast resonates with, I feel like you've given us language to really understand what happens, because I think on some level, anyone who is listening to this right now has probably felt this, has probably experienced this. And it's really hard to express. It's really hard to articulate these things when you start, like you said, using different language, when you start showing up differently, when you start understanding yourself and the world that you live in differently. It's it's amazing if you can find like-minded people who also get that, or you can find spaces and groups and communities where others feel the same way. But that can take time. That can be really hard to get to, especially if the bubble you're living in is not supportive of that, or the conditioning that you have, the world that you live in, the principles and norms and values that the people around you have, they conflict with that. So yeah, I definitely, hearing what you've said, I can, it took me back 4 or 5 years ago when that started happening with me too. And Um, and it is profound. It is life-changing. And that leads me to the question I wanted to ask you, which is this bigger vision of yours that animal communication can be a way to create this change in people and thereby create this change in the world. Can you tell us more about that?
My fingers are crossed. Like, I know that whenever we get as humans really enthusiastic about something, like, oh, it worked for me, I'm going to go make sure everybody else gets this too. Like, it can be bad, right? We can do that. There's bad ways to do that, and there's good ways to do that. So for me, it's always an invitation. It's like, I'll have what she's having. Like, this is possible for everyone. Living in a world in which you feel like you belong and you're part of it and you're connected, which for me is where I felt in nature as a child. That was my core spirituality, was being in nature with crawdads and birds and creeks and redwood trees and all of that. And so I moved away from that through, the process of growing up and all of the things that we do in modern world. But my longing was to come back to that sense of belonging that I had as a child when I was out in nature. And for me, learning animal communication was the deepest longing that I had as part of that. But that's what led me back to that spiritual truth that I had lived until I, kind of whatever, until I didn't. Then I got it back again. So the way that I see animal communication being a path to heal the planet, to heal our relationships with each other, and to heal ourselves, I think all healing is an inside job. I think that it comes down to the individual. And when the individual does the work on herself, that radiates out from her, and then other people respond differently. And then they're like, wow, I see what she's having. I'd like some of that. How did you get that? And you're like, well, I did the totally crappy work of healing all of the shit that I didn't want to look at in my life, all the trauma, all the judgments I'd made against myself, all of the ways I had made myself and the world wrong, all of the anger, all the resentment. Yeah, I had to deal with that. But I did it via animal communication because it was helping me become a better animal communicator. And the animals were showing me where my shortcomings were. And because of my love of animals, I was willing, in order to do a better job by them, because I very much was driven, especially in the beginning, by this mandate to be a clear messenger for animals. I just wanted to share their messages. And so when I started to see that having my upsets was a detriment to being a good animal communicator, then I needed to start healing my upsets. So I think that animal communication gives us a direct experience of connection and belonging. And I think that that direct experience of that starts to chip away at some of these illusions that we've collectively bought into. Like, it's us versus them, it's black or it's white, it's good versus bad. Like, oh my God, Descartes, I wish I could wipe Descartes off the history of this planet, because the duality is just plain wrong. I'm sorry, dude, you got it wrong. So
wait a minute,
Cartesian
Cara, for people who don't know who Descartes is, do you want to just briefly say?
Rene Descartes was a philosopher who he's the one who said, I believe, I think, therefore I am. Another piece of crap. And also was like, there's life is duality, right? And it's really, really not. Upset is duality. When we're in an upset, we see things as black or white. When we are in connection, when we are in that space where animal communication happens, when we're in that space where we're part of collective consciousness, when we're in that space of being with the squirrel in our backyard, just by being there, there's no duality. There's no separation. That's the illusion. And that's the illusion that Western society has bought into over however many years it's been, a couple hundred, right? So that setup is the context that we live our lives in. Well, if I'm good, then you're bad. Or if you're good, then I'm bad. Because we can't both be good because there's duality, right? It just sets us up for failure. And it continues this pain process that our species has been in for millennia of, being in pain inside ourselves because we're judging ourselves, we're judging what's happening outside of ourselves. We're living within a context of good and bad and right and wrong when it's not black and white. It's a freaking rainbow of every color in the universe. And we belong here. We are part of it. We're not separate from it. And when we make our brain the boss, we really got it backwards. Our world is upside down. And so animal communication gives us that direct experience of peace, of centering, of grounding, of belonging, of beingness within ourselves, and then connectedness with another being who we now see not as other, but as see. You can't have a conversation with a wasp and not see how similar you are. You can't do that and come away unchanged if you're truly open and curious of like, what's your perspective? Who are you? I want to know, right? And so to me, animal communication is the ultimate vehicle for saving humanity, for saving the earth, for saving all of these species that are, going extinct, that are dying at the hands of humans. Because when we experience our divinity, our connectedness, our meaningfulness, our enoughness, we change. And we change in the direction of preservation, of cooperation, of collaboration, of respect and equality. And that is what is possible. And that's what our planet needs. And it needs it in many different avenues, right? Animal communication is one path to that. There's a million other avenues towards that as well. I was just watching on Netflix a documentary about Jose Andres, the famous Spanish chef who started World Central Kitchen, right? That's another path. That's knowing. He knows in his heart of heart that we're the same. When there's a disaster, people need to eat. Food is life. Food is nurture. Food is love. Food is connection for him. His path is food. My path is animal communication. And when we get to be who we came here to be, then there's a million plus, however many millions of people there are on the planet, there's that many millions of ways to heal the planet because we become the healing presence.
Oh, whoa. Beautiful. You are so articulate, Cara. It's really amazing. Really wonderful to listen to you and
Thank you.
put this all in perspective. So, in that vein of changing the world, one person at a time, you have an academy. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So my Animal Communicator Academy is, I think, my greatest point of impact on the planet. I think it's one of the best things that I can be doing with my time. I recently faced a cancer situation, and it made me really examine who I am and what I'm here to do. And out of that, I'm all healthy now, everything's all groovy. But out of that, deep realization of I truly don't know how much time I have, so what am I doing with this time? I realized that I could not reach I could not have the impact that I wanted to have on the world. I could not help animal communicators become animal communicators and go out and help thousands of animals by myself. I couldn't go reach all the animals and all the people. So I really recognize that my point of greatest impact is to train as many confident animal communicators as possible. And so I created what I consider to be the most learner-centered program for learning animal communication on the planet currently, because it is completely self-paced, it's completely supported. You get the complete program from beginning to finish, from beginner to advanced. I'm with you the whole way. You have access to me, and we have Q&A calls and practice calls, and an amazing, amazing community of other animal lovers who are also tapping into all the beautiful and the majesty of everything that we've been talking about. And I have students from literally all over the world in there. So we've just created this amazing force field of love that is going out on the planet. And I'm super, obviously, very, very proud of it. I think we're doing a really good job with helping animal lovers tap into their natural ability. And I call it the learning and the unlearning. There's skills that we practice. There's, techniques that we use. But the unlearning of letting go of all of those illusions, of healing those upsets, that's part of the path.
That's amazing. How long has that been running, Cara?
So I started that in 2022. So we are celebrating our 3rd year of being around. Yeah.
Amazing. And is it from what you've learned? Now, tell us about your new book, Confident Animal Communicator. Is it learnings from that process in the last few years of training all these animal communicators that led you to writing that book?
Yeah, I really want people to understand that animal communication is within each one of us. Without a doubt, we're hardwired for this. We can all do it. Doesn't matter, if we're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or, a janitor someplace. Like, everybody has this ability. There are challenges along the way. There definitely are challenges along the way. And there's techniques, like I said, that you can use. So the Confident Animal Communicator book, to me, is kind of an overview of my philosophy of what it takes to relearn, to reclaim that ability that we all have, and to be able to do it in a way that is honest, that's ethical, that's impactful, that's respectful, and that's accurate and fun. Because this is like such an amazing superpower to have. And it is so impossibly enjoyable and impossibly heartbreaking and impossibly heart opening at the same time. So the book, The Confident Animal Communicator, is a great introduction to me and my philosophy, and it kind of outlines how I teach in the academy. And then if somebody wants to take that on and really go for it, the program takes about 1 year to 2 years for most people to complete, and then you can, dive in with my support.
Awesome. Oh, what a wonderful I'll have to get that. Actually, part of our journey right now as PhD students, we're going to be learning animal communication ourselves and using it in our research. And I'm thinking that this could be a great starting point. I mean, I've been learning over the last few years, but I think this would be really, really helpful. Tell us about your other book, the Animal Chakras book.
So the Animal Chakras book really came out of my love of chakras. Like, I've just loved chakras my whole life. And as an animal communicator, I started seeing patterns that lined up with chakras when I was working with my human and animal clients. And I wanted to learn more about animal chakras, and I started looking for a book. I started looking for a class. I started looking, there's a lot of charts. Actually, there's a lot of charts out there in the world about animal chakras, but not a lot of depth and information. And so I realized that I had to pull together what I had to create the resource that I was looking for. And I wanted to make animal chakras accessible to everyone in a way that didn't require special tools or a ton of money or anything like that. And so I really focused in this book on understanding the energy of animal chakras and why they're important and how imbalances show up and how to help animals rebalance energetically and holistically using, tools that didn't cost any money, like food that you feed them, or affirmations, or different ways to give them choices if it's a third chakra issue, those sorts of things. And I loved the process of writing that book. And then I actually created a card deck as well and a coloring book of animal chakras
Ooh,
because I like go deep into chakras. Like I just
wow.
love them. And I think it's really helpful for animal lovers, whether you're an animal communicator or not, to know that there are patterns that you can look for that help pinpoint where to put your focus. Otherwise, we can get lost in the minutia of all the specific details and not see the forest for the trees. And for me, understanding animal chakras is seeing the forest and knowing which direction to go and what's going to be most supportive, what's out of balance, what's in balance, and then being a partner with the animals to help support them because we're healing all the time, humans and animals. It's kind of what we're here to do. And so anything that we can do to create a supportive environment that enhances that is going to be good and effective. And this book focuses on kind of the big picture and the general things that we can all apply wherever we are with whatever animals we love.
Yay. Boy, you are productive, Cara. You do a lot.
I think I'm
And
just passionate, Barbara.
you are passionate. And we've already talked about the gray whales and your connection with them,
Yeah,
but you've got a book about the gray whales as well, right?
I
What's that?
do.
What's that about?
So the working title is The Gift of the Gray Whale, and my subtitle has changed. I'm not sure what it's going to go, but I had a childhood dream of touching a whale. And last year it came back to me in a really profound way that I just couldn't shake it. And so I went to Baja California to San Ignacio Lagoon with a really wonderful tour company. And I, it's hard for me to kind of encapsulate it. I had such an amazing time, and I had the experience of communicating with the whales, and then the experience of the collective consciousness. And I was like, oh my God. And the place is magical. I mean, the Baja California, the geology is incredible. The environment is amazing. The community there is off the charts. The conservation effort, oh my God, a model for the whole planet. And I was just so blown away by my experience that I was like, somebody needs to write a book. Somebody needs to write a book about this place. Who's going to write a book about this place? And then once again, it was me. Spoiler alert, it was me. And the really fascinating thing about this book for me was it was a profound journey to get to the gray whales. I had to overcome a lot of what I've already alluded to a lot in this conversation. I had to overcome a lot of the limitations and mental blocks and mindset issues from my childhood about really saying yes to myself. It was a whole thing. It's probably too much to go into. I'll try to keep the Cliff Notes version here. So it was a really big victory for me to see the whales, to connect with the whales, to learn directly from the whales, and to really see how I had been set up for this amazing healing of recognizing my worth and my value in the world, and how being myself and saying yes to myself was so important. In fact, it was fundamental to everything that happened for me with the whales. And I started to see how each one of us is an infinity symbol where we're always interacting. And you have to be an equal player for that balance of that infinity symbol. And so that's what I got from the gray whales. And then I thought I was done. And then I started writing the book about that. That was my conclusion. And what happened was, in the process of writing the book, I went to an even deeper level of healing than I ever thought was available to me in this lifetime. And it was thanks to the whales, thanks to the coyotes, the bears in Tahoe, who are my neighbors, um, and and thanks to my body. I was getting physical ailments that I didn't know were messages about where my head was out of balance. And all of these things have come together in the last month or so for me to experience the most profound healing, spiritual, mental, emotional healing of my entire life. And I think that I want to share that story with the world. And I want to share how pivotal my dream to be with the whales was for what ended up being. I'm 60 years old. This was 60 years in the making, this healing process. So I know I'm kind of like talking about it in a weird way. It's a story of good and evil and nature, slaying the inner dragon. Um, it's my whole freaking life in a book. And and for me, it's weird to be at a place where I can say, yeah, I healed the biggest thing that I didn't think was healable. I went to the place inside myself that I did not think was possible. And I came out on the other side, freaking like a gray whale, like embodying that peace, that belonging, that sense of purpose, that sense of value and worth. And it tears me up just talking about it right now, because um, until this experience at this profound level, it has all been a very theoretical process. Oh, someday I can forgive that. No, I could never forgive that. And now that I have so many other aspects of what kept me conflicted inside, what kept me small inside, what kept me hurt inside, are gone. And I really, truly can live my future in the fullness of who I just am. And no artifice, no extra, not playing up like, oh, I got to be bigger than I am. I'm not playing smaller than I am. I'm just like, well, here I am. This is me. And I get to live the gift of the gray whale, which is really living that sense of belonging here and being enough.
Well, you got me teary too. And I just say, what's really affecting me with what you're saying, and you've been saying all along here, is the process that we have to go through to be authentic, effective, honest animal communicators. And, it would seem on the surface, oh, great, you talk to animals, isn't that cute and fun? But to be really good at it, which is what you're talking about, you have to let go of all that stuff that we've picked up throughout our lives. I know for me personally, I've gone through many periods of change. And right now I'm older than you, and I'm going through a profound one of letting go of all these old memories and beliefs and perspectives and body issues, and not just this present lifetime, but other lifetimes as well, where we've been tortured and killed and who knows what. But I think it is a journey, and the animals are such profound teachers because they know so much, and they're so totally loving and supportive of us, despite what human beings have done to many of them. So I just deeply, deeply appreciate your sharing of all these things. And I'm so delighted for you that you've come out to the other side with the help of the gray whales, and you're living your full life now and sharing that with many people.
Thank you so much, Barbara. That means a lot to me.
And adding to the list of all the amazing things that you do, you also have a podcast. Tell us about the podcast.
Oh my gosh. So my podcast is called Animal Communication with Dr. Cara. Hopefully by the time this airs, it will be on more places than one. Currently, it's only on Spotify, and I'm working on getting that distribution thing happening. But really, for me, this is my outlet for sharing with the world. Like, these are my tips. This is my experience. This is my inspiration. So I have, generally between 15 and 30-minute podcast sessions, and they can be interviews with people. Hoping to interview you, Avantika, and possibly you, Barbara, as well. And also just like, stuff that I've picked up, interviews with other animal communicators from around the world. But really just a place for people to go, yes, this is for me, and yes, I see a path. So Animal Communication with Dr. Cara, currently on Spotify.
Well, I think we're coming to the end. This has been a lot, and it's been wonderful. So, so grateful to you, Cara, for all you've shared in such a elegant way. And boy, pretty profound. And I can tell that you are completely passionate about communicating with animals, which is wonderful. And you're sharing that with many, many others. So you are really a blessing on this planet. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, Cara. I think this past hour just flew by, and I feel like we could have talked much longer for hours. And before we wrap up, Cara, is there anything else you wanted to share with our audience today?
Well, first, I want to thank both of you for being here and bringing out so much of the richness of what we've shared here. Like, this was just such an amazing time to spend together in a conversation. And I think my final message to listeners would be, you got this. You have it within you. Trust yourself. Go for it. Say yes.
Yeah, say yes to yourself, like you said earlier. Yeah. Well, thank you so, so much, Cara, for your time today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening to this episode. And as always, before we leave today, we'd like to share a blessing for the animals.
We'd like to end this podcast by taking just a moment to be quiet. And we give thanks and blessings to these amazing animals that we share our lives with. They give us so much and ask for so little in return. We hope that you can keep the animals and all living beings in your heart and in your mind as you go about your day. Thank you so much for being here with us today.